I don't know what I did with it.
In a minute.
It's
Good morning.
good morning.
Hey, there he is.
Good. How are you? How's everybody doing?
Good, thank you.
Good, very good, thank you.
Yeah.
Great. How are you?
I'm good. Okay. Got some interesting things to show you today. We're gonna watch a few videos this morning. And what we're talking about is drawing, and particularly like drawing as it relates to the human figure, okay? Now, in the past, when we've talked about figure drawing, we've kind of taken a very sort of traditional approach, right? You know, in other words, you know, it was all kind of based on, you know, the rhythm and the movement, but also the anatomy of the figure. And what I want to talk about today is more kind of experimental drawing with the figure that, you know, you don't have to necessarily have a lot of background as an artist, you know, with anatomy, okay, to include human figures and things in your work. And many times, you know, your knowledge and your adherence to the rules, quote unquote, of drawing human figures doesn't always work in your favor, okay? Sometimes, you know, you need to be a little more artistic with them, and you need to distort them and, you know, do things with them that maybe the human body really can't do, but become more expressive, you know, because you exaggerate them, you know, in the process of, you know, painting or drawing that figure. So I want to share a couple of videos for you to look at. And, you know, after we kind of look at a couple of these, we're going to stop and we're going to have kind of an open roundtable discussion here about, you know, what you saw, what you thought, what you liked, what you didn't like, whether or not, you know, you think that you could apply some of that to your work. And maybe you'll get some ideas and some inspiration, you know, to try to actually include, you know, more of the human element, you know, in your work, okay? So we're gonna head off, and here we go. We're gonna start with this guy, okay? He's kind of an interesting character. Get in full screen here for you. And, all right.
Hi there, welcome back to another Bob Blast. Hi, I'm Bob Burridge, and this one is all about how I paint a figure without painting the figure in my paintings. Whether I'm painting on paper, watercolor paper, or on a canvas, the things I usually use is a wide brush, a little bit of acrylic paint, and I'm using Holbein's Marigold and Opera, some isopropyl alcohol, some black paint, and paper towels for this demo. Again, it's all about how I do a figure in my paintings without actually doing the figure. It's kind of a fun way. We call it reductive painting techniques. Hey, I'm right here in my workshop right now, in the middle of one of my workshops. We're all here doing a mentor workshop here in my studio, and guess what? My students and painters, yay, painters and students are here watching me make a complete fool of myself. So, yay, and thank you for being here. This is just one of the crazy things we do here at the Bob Burridge Studio Workshop. So let's get started. I'm going to show you how I do my figures without painting figures. So the current technique that I'm using right now is a lot of fun. It's called reductive, where I actually wipe the paint away from the surface. So here are some techniques on watercolor paper, on canvases, where I put a lot of dark color down, and then while it's still wet, start to wipe away with a paper towel. Maybe I'll put some isopropyl alcohol on the paper towel. Here's another example. I put 2 or 3 different colors and drawing with even charcoal in there. And while it was still wet, start wiping away. It's this great technique, what I call surprises. And let me do one of them right now for you. So here's one of the techniques. I take, here's some Holbein marigold and opera. I squeeze it out a little bit here, just like this. Oh yeah, squeeze it out. I take a paper towel, and rub it into this particular thing. Happens to be canvas. Use a little bit of water. Really rub it in. Let the canvas go through. So it's not so strong, just a little bit, just like that. And then I'll let it dry. And after it dries, I'm going to put some dark paint, maybe this time black gesso on top of it, and let's see what happens when I start to wipe it away. Watch this. And now the dark color. Here we go. I'm going to put it lightly on top of this, using lots of water, lots of pigment. That's the other key. Look, it's still wet. A lot of pigment. Now comes the fun part, taking a paper towel. This happens to be a Viva towel that seems to be pretty strong. Soaking it with some isopropyl alcohol. Right? All soaked in. Now I'm going to start taking it away. Look, here we go. Reductive. Oh my. This is so cool. Now here's a dry one. Come all the way down to the gesso paper, right? Classic pose. Look at this. Oh, put the head up in here. Yeah. And you start drawing it. It's still wet. That's why I like to draw on top of gesso paper. Gives you a longer time to play. Look at this. Crazy drawing. I like it. So that's just wiping it away, called reductive. You can use water, wet towels, or, see, still comes across. It comes right off, still wet. Or when it starts to dry too much, use the alcohol on your paper towel. So it won't take the paint out even after it's dried. But while it's still wet, I just use water. It comes this miracle little figure. A lot of personality. So another way of doing what I call doing figures without actually painting figures. So you just saw some of my paint dripping down. All I had to do here while you weren't watching, take some of it off with a paper towel, and again, a little bit of isopropyl alcohol. It doesn't matter if it's 91% or 70%, it seems to me it works really well. So here's some more of this paint. So it has dried an awful lot since we've last seen each other. So watch this. Even with rubbing alcohol, putting it on the towel, I can continue another figure. So here we go. I always start off with the head. And if you've been into some of my other workshops, remember the way we do figures is we make carrots. Making a carrot here, which is basically taking paint away using isopropyl alcohol. Look at that. It starts to paint itself after a while. Pretty creepy, actually, right? So that's how I create in my paintings, whether I'm doing landscapes or super abstracts, where you create this image of a figure by wiping away from a dark color background using rubbing alcohol. And I hope you enjoyed this one. Try it. It's a lot of fun. Take practice. It's great fun. Whether the paint's dried or even if it's still wet, rubbing alcohol will take it away. Hey, I have some important announcements. Stay tuned.
Okay. Sorry about that. I stopped it a little bit early. What'd you think of that?
Is there a way to create a background that would have some color in it so the figures won't be absolutely white? Or
Yeah. I mean,
how would you do that?
well,
Yeah,
he,
what happened to the color he put down first?
well, he started using isopropyl alcohol, which just cut right through it. Now, if you put down that color, and he was using acrylic, by the way, okay? He didn't say, you know, exactly what kind of medium he was using, but he was using acrylic paint. And he was working, you know, you have to work fairly quickly. You don't have a lot of time to dawdle around with it. But, you know, he put that tone in the background and he let it dry, which was fine. But, you know, because he wanted to kind of jump in and talk about the use of that isopropyl alcohol, he went ahead and put it on the cloth at the very first, and that cut all the way down to the gesso, you know, that was originally there. And if he would have just used water with that, you know, and then put the black paint and then started lifting it out, that color would have stayed there probably, okay, if you let it dry thoroughly. But, you know, I would probably, if I were going to do that, I would put that tone on there. I would let it dry for an hour or two before I tried to put anything over it. You know, I think he was working very quickly, and it just didn't give the paint enough time, you know, to set up. And I probably would have also left it a little bit thicker, you know, because he watered it down, you know, that tone, he watered it down quite a bit. And anytime that you water down that acrylic, what you're doing is, other than just thinning the color, you're also breaking down the adhesion qualities of the paint. So if you get it too thin, it's not going to stick as well, right? So, you know, if I were going to go about that, I would lay my tone down, again, keep a little more color on there, let it dry thoroughly, at least an hour or so, then come back with my other color, darker color or whatever, and then start lifting back. But I would just use water, you know, while that dark paint was still wet. And if it began to get, you know, really difficult to move, then I might, you know, put in a little bit of the alcohol to start breaking it down. But if you use isopropyl alcohol with acrylic, it will basically, you know, it's basically used as a cleaning agent for the acrylic to get the acrylic off of a surface, and it will pretty effectively cut right through acrylic. So you want to use it sparingly. I think he was going at it a little aggressively. Now, that being said, you know, after all was done and said, you know, there's nothing wrong with letting that dark dry and then washing, you know, putting color washes back over it if you want to add color into those skin tones. All right. So there's another way of approaching it.
Charles, Bob Blass is one of the people that I follow on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
He's really good, but sometimes I think he sniffs too much of that alcohol. So
Yeah. Okay.
he has a tendency to be a little over dramatic.
Yeah.
But one of the advantages, one of the things I really learned from him is his method of using the color wheel.
Mm-hmm.
It is so interesting how he explains the best use of the colors on the color wheel. And also when he does his abstract figures, he tells people to do it like a carrot. So
Right.
if anybody who, like myself, really, I'm not a drawer, but if you want to add abstract figures, look at his video about his figures on how to do them as carrots. It's just really amazing how he does it. But
Yeah.
sometimes he gets a little too,
Yeah.
I gotta let him go.
And the name was what? The name of the guy you're talking about?
His name is Bob Blass, B-L-A-S, right? Or
Yeah, Bob. It's Bob Bird.
Or Bob. Yeah.
Bob Bird, and his program is Bob Blass. Really, really good. I mean, it's just
B-L-A-S-T?
Yeah, B-L-A-S-T.
Okay, got it.
But if you really want to learn about the color wheel, how he puts it together, makes it so simple and very, very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And drawing figures abstractly as carrots. So.
Yeah. All right. So now his actual name is Robert or Bob, and then Burridge, B-U-R-R-I-D-G-E. And his YouTube channel is Bob Blast. So it's
Blast.
capital B-O-B and then capital B-L-A-S-T. All right.
Yeah.
And so, you know, if you want to look him up on YouTube, you could, and, you know, see a variety of his videos. I came across this and, you know, I thought it was a fun kind of approach to, you know, trying to incorporate figures into your painting.
Yeah.
And again, you know, it gives you another tool because, again, you know, it's a different process. It's what we call a reductive process, or I refer to it as subtractive. See, you're taking away rather than, you know, doing, you know, additive painting. You know, you're not mixing a color, putting it up there on the canvas, and then mixing in a color and adding another. You know, you're putting a tone down, you're putting something over it, you're pulling away, you're scraping through it, you know. So it's a different way of thinking, and you get, you know, very different effects from, you know, those different approaches, you know, to your work. And you can get, you know, some really lovely kind of organic things, you know, in the process, and come up with some things that, you know, you wouldn't have ever really expected. You know, the issue, if I could point out, is the fact that you can't be too much of a perfectionist about it. You know, because if you're one of these people that you want to nitpick things, you know, the advantage of doing subtractive processes and stuff will work against you, because you'll just undo it all, you know, by just nitpicking with it. It's more of one of these things you just gotta kind of go with it, and, you know, let it kind of do what it's going to do, and you know, you'll end up with some really beautiful, you know, textures and transitions of color and stuff like that you didn't expect. But, you know, again, you know, that's one of those approaches where you have to be comfortable with the fact that, you know, it may not turn out, you know, exactly the way you see it in your head, and you can't control it, you know. So, you know, that's one of the big struggles, I think, with a lot of artists is, frankly, you know, we tend to be control freaks, you know. We want, you know, we want to control every little nuance of everything there. And, you know, with some of these processes, you just got to kind of step back and let that go, and let it be what it is. And, you know, anyway, we'll look at a couple more of these. And I wanted to, all right. Yeah, here. All right, so now this is, and you guys have seen a show from this place before, and this is called the Stankey Gallery. Okay, and let's see if I got the right one, because I got like 5 here. Yeah, okay, good. Yay. Finding stuff on my desktop sometimes is a bit of a challenge for me. And this is well, she'll explain it. I'll let her talk.
Hi, I'm Catherine Stanek, owner of Stanek Gallery. The title of the show is The Contemporary Figure. It's not just because he's a contemporary artist rendering and handling things in a contemporary way, but it's more that the content is dealing with contemporary issues. There are also timeless issues that apply to everybody. It's ego and humility, grief and coping, and youthful angst, beauty and age, identity. Each piece was selected because of what is felt when you're viewing it. No matter who you are, where you're from, what you believe, what you don't believe, you feel. Everybody feels. And that's what this show is about. Tammy Beldew is an artist from North Carolina. The work that's in the exhibition comes from her Identity series. that she's developed involves watercolor, graphite, and caustic. They all lend themselves to this blurring and this shadowing effect. They're very highly detailed, but they're very atmospheric as well. She develops them over time, and so you have these ghostly images coming through underneath. It defines the details of the individual, but not really. There's always something left open to question. Some may think of Paul Kava and they think of photography, but I think of him more as a mixed media artist. Paul's technique and content gives the viewer something unexpected. He pushes you beyond tradition, beyond comfort zones. He explores emotion and sensuality in a very poetic way. He's using both his own photographs as well as some antique photos. Rendering on them, he's painting, he's drawing, he's printing. His study of poetry is particularly important in his work. He's going more towards a visual poetry, so words are important as an object more so than as a meaning. His work has an interesting way of looking back and forward at the same time. His work, to me, looks like a performance, very theatrical. Your eye dances around the surface. When I invited Paul to be in the show and I told him what it is about his work that intrigued me, he said, you'd be interested in talking to Nancy Hillenbrand. What struck me was not that she was a photographer, but that she was exhibiting photography in a three-dimensional way. She was taking these printed images and crinkling them up and presenting them as three-dimensional objects. And that was fascinating to me. So Vanessa and I went to her studio. She has images hanging all over her studio, sitting on floors, sitting on pedestals in three-dimensionals in non-conventional ways. And we didn't know we were looking at first. It was this body of work that was emerging of people over the age of, I think, 70. And she's challenging that notion of beauty and how we see age. When people come in, they're struck by, wow, what is it? Is that a painting, a drawing, a photograph? Look at that, it's presented three-dimensionally. Look at how it's turning and bending. They see all of that before they see what's standing before them, and that's a torso or a figure of somebody who you wouldn't normally see in a fine art show. So I would say that Nancy has succeeded in changing how people approach age, beauty, and the contemporary figure depicted in art. Valerio Despina, originally from Italy, now living in Philadelphia. In the past, we've shown his industrial cityscape scenes where you have all of this frenetic energy moving you into the space. And now we have the pleasure of showing some of his figurative work. He's revisiting the figure periodically throughout his career to see how the two relate to each other, the human figure and the architecture. I do see our environment as an extension of who we are. We created it. It reflects our priorities. It reflects our values. So Valerio's preoccupation with depicting industrial and man-made structures isn't a surprise. It actually feels to me more like a natural progression. So all of his images have that same center of the universe weight, with everything gravitating and pulling you in and around the subject. Then with the addition of the water element, the organic, reintroduced into this movement, he calms the environment and allows the viewer to settle in.
This is Heather, who is the muse for Carrie Dunn.
When I look at his paintings, I see serenity, or maybe that's just poses that I, But that's what I see when I see all three of these paintings here.
You're very beautiful, and I think he captured that.
Thank you. I actually have a painting from Carrie in my home that I posted. It was a 6-hour alla prima, and it's a keepsake of mine. I feel honored that he would take the time to paint me.
Gary Dunn, the Philadelphia artist. Clearly he has skills to burn. The first piece is called Muse, and it's rendered more traditionally. He places her in this environment that doesn't actually exist. She's floating. You feel like she needs to be grounded, and in this trend of traditional rendering, you're expecting something else, and you're kind of surprised. That air around her is important. You have another one where it was very heavily brushed with a palette knife. Very loose, very open. It's the same figure repeated and sympathetically composed. The third painting introduces additional figures that overlap in a way that reminds us of what we have in common, yet they're finished in a way that celebrates the individuality. It's the combination of the two that elevates us. And I can't think of a more beautiful way for Cary to use his muse and his tools available to him to say something about equality. Stanka Kordic from Ohio, but originally from Croatia. Stanka's work starts very traditionally with a model and rendering it more representationally. And then she takes that and she scrapes it down and she rebuilds and scrapes and rebuilds. And at some point she just lets go of what it is she is controlling to wherever the painting is taking her. And what's left behind is a history of identities, of what existed at that point in time. And there's those ghost images, very much like Tammy's. They're both dealing with this issue of identity. Both have those shadowy histories coming through. It creates a mystery, beauty, an atmosphere, and it adds to the complete image. Stanka has illustration in her past. You can see that coming through. That's who she was as an artist at one point in time. And you don't completely let go of your origins. They become part of who you are. So her work has a life very much like her own. Gary Weissman, his studio and home are in Ithaca, New York, but he still has a place here and teaches at the Pennsylvania Academy, so his roots are still here. Each piece is suspended in this space and time in a way that you wouldn't expect and wonder how he accomplished. There's a series of 4 pieces that are an homage to grieving parents, parents who've lost a child. Not necessarily an infant child, but any child. No parent should suffer the loss of a child. There's too many instances these days where that tragedy happens and that parent is left to cope, to recover, to deal. And this grouping of work is doing exactly that. There's an empathy towards what they're experiencing. There is a struggle that is real, but the subjects are not surrendering, they're fighting. It's a necessary part of the healing and coping process. The suspension quality that we see often in Gary's sculpture, in this context works as a reminder of this being a transitional stage, sort of an empathetic gesture. Gary also introduces a new element of fabric into this body of work. And to me, the softness against that hard surface work compositionally as well as it does emotionally. It's comforting. Stephen Early another artist from Philadelphia area and teaching over at Studio Incaminati. If you were to look up Stephen on the internet, you'll see this barrage of accolades and teaching and sought after for this and sought after for that. But there's not a lot about what his work is about. And I think that's because he doesn't hit you over the head with content. He's in love with the form and the terms of the form. When you look at his work, you can just feel the twists and turns. He has a lot of twists and turns in there. A lot of them are even a little contorted. And if they're not, there's a concealment in some way happening. So there's a struggle there. And it's almost as if something is being held back, trying to get out. One of the pieces, he talked about it in the context of a rebirth. When you look at his work, there's almost a concealing and a holding back, and then an emerging coming out, all at the same time. Leona Shanks splits her time between her studio and the successful operation of Studio Incaminati here in Philadelphia. She's committed to both, but torn. Since I find myself in a similar situation with the gallery and studio time, I can relate to those feelings. So when I view Leona's work, I can feel that imbalance, that unsure and that unstable part of the composition. But the subjects are confident. They have an attitude that comes with that age. This invincible attitude that you're often robbed of. The more aware you become, the more experienced you become. Leona has captured that moment just before doubt enters in and just before you become inhibited. In the time that I've had this gallery, going into our third year, I've curated myself into two of those shows. The first one was the very first show that said, this is who I am as an artist, and here are the artists that influenced my career. And this is the second time. The reason is I feel a connection to all of the artists in the show. They're all capturing something that is way beyond the surface, way beyond what you see first. It's about a feeling. I wanted to be exhibiting with a group that's doing that same thing. The gallery is taking up a great deal of time. I don't have a lot of studio time, but I did manage to work on and finish one new piece, along with two other important pieces that speak to the same idea, that space in between. The space where I exist as an artist, as a gallerist even. There's always the word too. You're too classical, you're too conceptual, you're too loose, you're too tight. There's always something that one end of the spectrum or the other seems to object to, so they don't fully accept who I am as an artist. Conformity is actually dealing with that when you have a distinct point of view and it doesn't conform with the popular view of the room. I have two choices. You stand your ground, you maintain your point of view, and you're villainized. If you then conform, you lose a part of yourself. Either way, these fractions of yourself disappear. They get pushed away to the point that you feel constantly in this precarious position of which way do I go? So that's the new piece. This exhibition is equally important to me as an artist, as a curator, and as a gallerist. Yes, these are contemporary artists depicting the figure with talent and skill, but they're more than that. Their work has a depth, and it's a depth that's necessary now more than ever. We need work like this in our lives to remind us to stop, investigate, and marvel at the discovery of what we're capable of. It's also that depth that allows us to connect with one another on a level that we tend to neglect these days.
All right. Let's see. All right.
What
Anybody?
city was the studio in?
Philadelphia is where that gallery is at, Stanek Gallery. And we had watched a video. Actually, I think we've watched like 3 different videos of different shows being held at that gallery over the last, couple of months. I like to keep going back and looking at what they're doing, again, because they get a pretty broad variety of different artists from really different parts of the country. And, they really show some really good contemporary artwork, stuff that you're not going to get a chance to see in a lot of cases unless you travel a lot or spend a lot of time, looking at galleries and things like that. So, it's a good way of introducing you guys into, different pieces and different artists, creating, their work out there today. I know we talk a lot about, history and, kind of what's come before, but, my argument is always that really the very best art that will probably ever be is actually being made right now while we're sitting here. And, the problem is you don't know about it, you don't have access to it. But, with the tools, the materials, just the sheer number of people that we have who are creating art these days, we have to have a few Leonardo da Vinci's out there, a few, Pablo Picasso's, a few, like a little bit of everything out there. But really, just the sheer numbers, if you're a numbers type person, would tell you that, chances are that, we have probably the greatest collection of talent that's ever existed on the planet right now. Try to think about that,
Yeah, they'll talk about them in the 22nd century.
Yeah, 22nd, 23rd century, right. Yeah, and, and that's what always happens is, you may get a glimpse of what, people are creating today. Some of the architecture and stuff like that that's being made now will become, really like shining examples of what, man can actually do, what we can achieve. And of course, as technology, advances and, we explore, more ways of using materials, in ways that we haven't tried before, we're going to come up with new things. And again, it's just, it's that sheer mass of numbers of people, we've got to have more talent out there today than they had at the Renaissance. If you think about it, during the time of the Renaissance, you had like 1/100th of the population that was alive today.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there weren't really all that many people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when you really think about it. And when they talk about like the black,
fast.
yeah, but you start thinking back historically at times like the Black Plague and how it wiped out, over half of the people who were in Europe, right? Mm-hmm. But then you look at the sheer numbers of that, and that was probably only, about 5 or 6 million people.
Right.
Okay. But 5 or 6 million people, again, were half the whole population of Europe. The city of Atlanta, by itself has 5 million people in it, you know, plus. And so there's more people in Atlanta, you know, alive today than died in the Black Plague overall. So, you know, you start comparing those numbers and start looking at you know, just again, you know, just statistically the math. And it really, at least for me, okay, I can't talk for everybody else. You know, it makes me want to go out there and really look around and see what's going on in the world. Because really some of the most interesting stuff that people have ever done is going on right now. So,
And
anyhow.
if you look at it on the context of the COVID, all the could be or have been artists who are not alive anymore either.
Right.
Their work is
Yeah.
out there and may not be discovered for another decade or century or
30,
something.
40 years. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, you know, that's not an unusual thing to have happen. You know, I mean, you know, we just kind of went through, you know, I mean, if you look at historically, you know, going from the 19th century, you know, the beginning of the 19th century to the very beginning of the 20th century, you know, you had this whole shift in what art was and what was, you know, acceptable art, and artists trying new things. And, you know, because of that, you had a whole group of artists who were almost erased, you know, from history. And these are some of the people that we talk about all the time, okay? Like John Singer Sargent, Celia Bow. And there are many, many others, you know, who were literally almost lost to history. People had forgotten about them, you know, had kind of relegated them as being irrelevant, you know, and just because somebody took the time to really go back and look at what they were doing, Sargent is probably one of the most popular artists today, you know, that we've ever known. You know, and the same thing, you know, Cecilia Bow is becoming that, you know, because people are finding out more and more about her work. But again, up until maybe 10.
I looked her up. I was looking
Yeah.
for those people up.
Yeah, 10 or 15 years ago, you couldn't have found anything on Cecilia Bow.
Okay.
Nobody knew anything about her.
Okay.
But in her lifetime, she was actually more of a household name than Amelia Earhart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they lived at the same time.
Oh, okay.
So, but you know, in American society, she was one of the preeminent artists of that period of time. And you know, 50 years later, nobody knew who she was. You just
I did want to say something about the last film we saw. I love all those beautiful bodies, because what you tend to see is these bodies that look like they never went beyond 21 to 30. You know, and I love seeing that all bodies are beautiful, you know.
Right.
At every stage, there's a reason for your body to look the way it does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that particularly like that one artist who, you know, she was a photographer.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
And she was doing, I don't understand her process. I can't give you the particulars on that. But in some way, you know, she got those photographic images to wrap around a form, you know, and those were not flat canvases. So they were,
the red was going to the black and the white. Is that the one you're talking about?
No, these were all black and pretty much all black and white photo images, but they were generally of, I didn't see any male figures. They were all female figures. And supposedly they were all 70 or above. And she was talking about, you know, how the body ages. And as you were saying, you know, there's a inherent beauty even in an aging body.
But even in a young body, you know, male especially think that the bust is supposed to be for them. The bust is supposed to be for your baby. If the bust sticks straight out, that's not good. The bust is supposed to go downward so you can hold your baby in the right position. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Well, some people would just make the excuse that, we have a lot of males in the population that just didn't get enough breast milk. Never quite got over that. So, that's a societal thing. We'll have to tackle that one on a different day. But
good humor.
That kind of brings up, since we kind of crossed that bridge anyway, there's a lot of bias and a lot of prejudice against, female bodies versus male bodies.
Yes.
And if you, and I've experienced that myself personally with some of my artwork, sometimes it's very difficult to get a painting of a male figure into an art show.
Oh, okay.
A lot of judges will reject them, and yet they'll put female figures in there.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I had one case where I had submitted work into a show, into the area, it was a regional show in this area. And the work got accepted. The work got accepted and it was hanging on the wall. And a public official came in, saw the show, and immediately shut the show down.
Oh, my.
Because they didn't want the male figure. Well, they were afraid that people would be offended when they came in because,
Male came in second. Yay, yay, yay.
Pardon?
Male came in second. Yay, yay, yay.
Well, yeah, it's not a matter of coming in second. It's like, okay, it's like you can look at a female body and you can see breast and buttocks and thighs and everything else. And, in society's view, a lot of that is not offensive.
See, you know what? It's like, probably because we've been taught, might be what we see in school or whatever, but people are afraid of the male's body.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's a little, when it's nude, it's a little bit intimidating.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit. I try to tell myself I'm pretty liberal, but still, when you look at a male's body, if it's not someone it's a little bit intimidating. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's a little bit intimidating, a little bit.
Okay. There are a lot of shows here in Atlanta that will not allow you to even put in nudes of any kind because
I can barely hear you.
There are a lot of shows here in Atlanta that will not accept your work, whether it's male or female nudes, because people think it's offensive. They want everything other than the male.
Clean life. Well,
Yeah, everything has to be sanitized.
Yeah.
I really hate to put it in this general terms like this, but to me, it's either intimidates me or it's not interesting. It's like a male figure that there's no, a female's body is kind of neutral, but a male, the body changes, and it's either on that intimidating side or it's on that side where it's just dull.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm trying to say, Charles?
No, not exactly.
I think the position of the body has a lot to do with it also.
Mm-hmm.
That keeps it from being where someone doesn't like it. If the woman is in a very seductive position, it might be different than one being in more of an exotic position. So that might make a difference from people watching that too.
Yeah. Well, if you think back, historically, the human body has been depicted, for centuries. And particularly in the Renaissance and the Baroque, nudes were everywhere. Okay.
Yeah.
And, you know, all kind of forms of classical art. You know, a nude figure was no big deal. In fact, if you go to the Vatican today, there's more naked bodies around the Vatican than just about anywhere on the planet. Okay. You know, as we moved in, you know, to like the 1800s, 1900s, you know, people have gotten a little more squeamish about the nude body, and they want everything covered up. And God forbid, you know, that any kind of actual genital or, you know, physical anatomy that defines you as male or female is showing, because, you know, that people find that offensive. You know, in this day and age, it was never a big deal, you know, until we went through the Victorian period, and we're still suffering, you know, from a lot of those ideas, you know, about the body and about it being, you know, something that's not natural and kind of vulgar. And, you know, the fact is, there's, you know, you couldn't get further from the truth. You know, everybody's got a body, everybody.
When did the fig leaf was introduced? What year was that? Century?
Well, actually, it was the Roman Catholic Church who took all of those Greek statues, Greek and Roman copies of statues that they had, and they actually commissioned. Well, it was one particular pope, and his name was Pius. I think he was Pius the First.
Pius, perfect.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And he had all of the genitals removed off of the male figures and had fig leaves placed on those statues. You know, where they actually had, you know, it was a male body. They had everything that, you know, it's a guy. But, you know, we kind of from that point forward, you know, there's been a lot of back and forth about, you know, what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, you know, in drawing the human figure or painting it or sculpting it. And the fact is, you know, this is just my opinion, okay? You know, but, you know, it's the body, you know, we've all got one. And, you know, I think everybody, you know, and I mean every body, B-O-D-Y, is beautiful. And it doesn't have anything to do with your age, your weight, your health. You know, I mean, the human condition is, you know, it's something that we can all relate to. And
I will give away my knees, though, if anyone want them.
Pardon?
I will give away my knees. Swap out my knees if anyone would help.
Oh, you would trade those in? Okay. Okay. Yeah, my father would probably trade in. In fact, he wants to trade in his knees. He wants to get a knee replacement in both knees. But yeah, you know, I mean, we all go through things as we get older. You know, we all suffer, you know, through different physical conditions and things. But sometimes, well, in fact, most times, you know, yeah, you know, you can see there's a strength and a grace in people as they age. And even people who are in a deteriorated health condition can still have a grace about them and a beauty. And it's kind of in those moments, you know, that artists want to capture sort of that human spirit. It's like, you know, we're enduring, and that's part of life. You know, life is not easy, and it's not for sissies, you know,
boy, I tell you.
Yeah. I mean, as you get older, I mean, we all do it, you know, we all go through it, you know. I mean, there's a point in your life where, you know, you wake up one morning, your feet hit the floor and they hurt, and you just kind of wonder, it's like, this never, you know, this didn't happen all the time, you know?
You know, that was one of my mother's favorite sayings. She said, getting old ain't for sissies.
No.
You know,
No, it's
You know,
not.
you have to be a strong person to get old.
Oh, yeah.
But my opinion about the human body and art, it's amazing how people are squirmish about the male or female body. But we don't have a problem with having video games where our children decapitate people or shoot people. And, you know, we don't get squirmish over mass murders. You know, it's just amazing. It's still the body, clothed or unclothed, and you respect it. And I just find it so, you know, a male body is a male body, a female body is a female body. And like you said, we all have one. You know, and I just don't get it. I think it's, for me, I think it's a personal insecurity. You know, you were or you were taught that it was dirty. You know, how can something that we all have be dirty?
Right.
You know, and so
I understand what you're saying. I don't want to be too graphic, but if it's a male and he's in a position and he likes you, you like that body. If it's a male and he's in a certain position and you don't like him, that body bothers you. You know, and that's as far as I'm going to go. But you know what I'm saying?
People don't like my body because it's big.
No, I'm not talking about that.
It's not a big deal.
I'm talking about how male body does change. And if that's something you like, you like it. But it's a person that you don't like when the male body change, it intimidates you.
Yeah.
You know,
well, I'm gonna say the bad word here. Okay. And you know, but you know, basically what's happened from the Victorian period forward, and particularly up until like the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s, is that, you know, media and society has sexualized
the
human body. And a lot of people have a very difficult time looking at a human body and not seeing it in a sexual way.
Right.
And the thing with, you know, art is, you know, some art deals with sexuality and identity, you know, but it doesn't normally deal with it in a sexual way. But because we grew up in a culture and in a society where advertising and everything else has got us to look at other people, you know, and ourselves as sexual beings, and we kind of put ourselves on a rating scale as, you know, are we hot or are we not, right? You know, it's difficult, I think, you know, for people in this culture and even, you know, other cultures in the world right now to view art and view body, you know, the human figure in particular, in a non-sexual way. See? And the problem isn't the art. The problem is the society, and the problem is the people in the society and how they view it. See? And that's not a problem with the artist. You know, it's the problem with the audience. And the fact that the audience has been conditioned and, you know, basically, you know, taught to see the human figure or, you know, the body in a certain way. And, you know, we need to get past that. You know, it's like, you know, we've all grown up, you know, it's the 21st century, you know, and, you know, we need to correct some of those things in our society, you know, where we teach our children, you know, that there is something wrong, you know, with the fact that they have a body. Because, I mean, what's that doing to them? You know, if they don't feel comfortable in their own body, you know, because, you know, they're too big or they're too small or they're skinny or they're fat or, you know, they're black or they're white or they're brown or something in between, you know, the question begs itself, what kind of society are you creating?
You create a society of people who suffer from low self-esteem.
Right.
And it just goes on and on and on. It's sad. But again, like I said, it's no problem that you have video games and TV shows where you can kill people and decapitate people and, you know, maim people. That's okay. But a person in their natural state of, you know, we all came here naked. And technically we're all
Take our bath every day with naked.
Yep.
Huh?
And we take our bath every day.
Right. You know, we all showed up naked. Nobody had a full suit of clothes. And that's how you are. And people are offended by that. But again, I just find it amazing, you know, to watch some of these shows. And I don't watch them when it's okay to kill a person. That's so grotesque.
As far as nudity is concerned, a lot of our views of nudity stem from our Judeo-Christian teachings, because it is taught that nudity should not be viewed. So that's a lot of where a lot of that comes from. But as far as the violence and everything, that's wrong too. But I don't know, different people have different ideas about things.
Right.
Yeah.
They see it different ways, and sometimes it is hurtful.
Sometimes it's hurtful.
Yes.
Yeah.
But on the same thing though, males do have a record of subjugating women, you know. So that some of that may kind of come through.
Well, yeah, a lot of that's been going on for a long time.
Yeah.
And we are accustomed to seeing nude women. We've been brought up looking at nude women, but not nude men.
Right. Yeah.
That's true. Because coming up, your aunties and your grandmothers and your sisters, we all saw each other. We never saw our fathers or grandfathers or brothers nude.
Yeah.
It was always something that, no, you didn't do that. And especially at a certain age, that it was just kept separate.
Yeah.
And so that is one reason why the woman's body is more acceptable in art and photographs and things like that. We're trying to teach your children about their bodies. Now you have to teach your children about their bodies because of predators. So to be safe from people like that. It didn't used to be like that when I was coming. I don't know about all you. It might have been out there. It might have been out there, but we were never exposed to it. We were never exposed to it, you know. But that's what's coming up different here. So much is exposed to our children that they shouldn't even be seeing, that you have to explain to them why this is and why this shouldn't be this way, and why you can't accept this, you know. So it's become very hard for them to even enjoy art as we grew up seeing it.
Okay. See, a lot of different ideas about, you know, this subject, isn't it?
None of the men chiming in?
Yeah, most of the men are sitting back kind of being quiet, you know.
Oh, sure are.
I kind of wonder about that a little bit, but
speak, male, speak.
Yeah. Well, I think, okay, you know, and I'm gonna open my big mouth and I'm gonna stick my foot in it.
Oh, yeah.
But you know, here's the thing. It's like, you know, I generally paint the human figure. I love the human figure, and I love to paint, you know, the female figure and the male figure. It doesn't matter to me. It's probably the most wondrous thing on the planet. You know, just if you go into just the physical anatomy and understanding how the human body works, it's amazing. You know, it's almost beyond explanation, you know. But the fact is, you know, in society today, I, as a male artist, okay, of a certain age, you know, because I'm over 60 now. And, you know, most people would look at my work, and because I paint a lot of female figures, I'm a dirty old man. I'm serious, okay? You know, it's like, well, you know, you got some kind of problem because you're a dirty old man, you know. And if I paint the male figure, then, oh, well, yeah, you know, you're one of those kind of, you know, weird artists, you know, they question your sexuality, you know, or your identity. And so you can't win, you know. And interestingly enough, if you're a female artist and you paint the nude female figure, oh, that's okay.
That's That's interesting.
Yeah, you know, it's like you get a pass. You know, it's like you can paint all the nude figures you want, but if you're a male artist over a certain age and you're painting, you know, female nudes, you're just a dirty old man. You see, and so
Boy, am I in trouble?
Yeah, well, no, we're all in trouble. See, and that's the problem. You know, we're all in trouble, and it's because people, you know, want to label you, you know, and look at your artwork and your identity, and you know, kind of put you in this box, and you know, it's frustrating. It really is frustrating because. You know, you like to paint the things you like to paint, you know, and, you know, what I want to say about the human body has nothing to do with, you know, sexuality. It's all about the human condition and about the fact that we all have this wonderful thing, you know, if you want, you could call it a machine that we run around in, that our consciousness is housed in for right now, you know, and we experience life. You know, through it. And, you know, whether you have a male body or a female body, you know, we all have similar experiences.
And I know that we're talking about human beings right now, but when you get down to bodies, I mean, a horse's body is beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Body is beautiful, especially a horse.
Yeah.
You know,
I think
all those bodies have those rippling muscles sometimes, and how it moves from underneath. You know, so the human body is one thing, but it's not the only beautiful body.
Well, but it's
anyone who's going to see something in the human body is calling someone a dirty old man or whatever it might be. That's their mindset anyway.
Right.
And they're not looking at the art of it or the beauty of it. They're just, that's their mindset, and they're not going to see anything artistically at all.
Right. Well, that's what I was saying. You know, we have a problem here. And the problem isn't the artist, the problem is the society and the things that we teach, you know, our children, and how we were brought up, you know, the things that we were taught as we were raised, that, you know, and not just, you know, not by our parents, because, you know, nobody is raised exclusively by your parents. You're raised by the society around you, which means that every time you turn on that TV set, every time that you listen to music, every time you read a book, you know, you're taking in, you know, different ideas and information, and those stick with you. And so depending on how you curate the content of what you see, you know, you can get some really different ideas, you know.
But you know, Charles, that's why I appreciate the last film that you showed us so much, because when you do go to an art show, when you do see nudes, even old nudes, they show these bodies that are a certain type, and as an older woman, I do look at it and say, what's wrong? Something is wrong if all the society is these women that look like they're under 30. Something is wrong.
Right.
You know, that's just me as an older woman. I'm just thinking, not that the body is dirty, undirty, or whatever. It's like, why the body stops at 30? Right. You know? Yeah.
Well, because
if you remember, you know, when we were all under 30, I can remember as a younger woman, I would see an older person in a sports car, and I would say, now how would that old man get a car like that? You know, that's not right. And so as you age, your view becomes different, and you almost forget you were under 30 and you didn't think you should see an old person. You know, most
believe I don't think I'm not, you know, I do know I have forgotten a lot of things I knew when I was 30, but I'm sure I probably always thought all ages should be represented, not just one age group represented. You know.
Well, you would be unusual. Okay.
Right, you would be unusual because again, when you're younger, you don't want anything to do with old people. You know, old people, and you know, we all woke up one day and guess what? We were the old people.
That's right.
Okay, but let's look at it this way then. The artists that are painting are not 30 and under either. So I'm saying, so why are they painting one age group?
Yeah, but
you paint what you know. You create what you know.
Yeah.
What
But
you're comfortable with.
if you're an artist, you know people from birth to death. So why are you only painting one age group?
If you're a person, you know people from birth to death.
If
You
you're
know,
an artist,
why is it that some young people have no respect for seniors?
I'm not talking.
It's about respect, Bernice. If you think about it, you know people no matter what age you are. You know people from all spectrums.
Exactly.
And so as a person, not as an artist, as a person, if you're a young person and you have no respect for old people, you'll run over a person and won't even think twice about it. And so you have to it starts with respect at any age. You know, I can't create something as an artist if I don't have respect for it. You know, you have to have respect.
And believe it or not, I'm really agreeing with you.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I chime in here?
Sure.
I'm really agreeing with you. I'm agreeing that you should have respect for all people.
Well, I'm going to answer Bernice's question.
Okay.
Right. And what it all comes down to is our conceptualization of beauty and what beauty is. And, you know, again, since the time of the Victorian period forward, really the thing that has been sexualized and really held up as being beautiful are these youthful figures, right? You know, people, you know, they kind of see it as, you know, they're not going to get any better than that. You know, after that, the body starts declining, right? That's the concept. That's, you know, I'm not agreeing with that. I'm just saying
I understand.
That's the idea. Okay. Now, reality is, you know, in my own personal experience, I probably never felt better and probably healthier than actually when I was in my 40s. Okay. You know, and, you know, different people, you know, they peak at different times, but generally through advertising and everything else, this idea of staying young and youth, and particularly advertising to women
exactly.
is really, really heavily oriented toward, you know, face creams and, oh my God, you know, you're going to get a wrinkle.
Who came up with that stuff?
Yeah, I know. And see, here's the thing, you know, you're inundated with that stuff, you know, and that's what I'm saying. You know, we live in this society where those ideals are pervasive because that's what keeps being, you know, fed to you every day on TV, radio, and every other media that you look at. You know, but it doesn't have to be that way. Okay. And it's making people aware. And, you know, I think there's a lot of efforts, you know, in the artist community, and I'm not saying just visual artists, but also, you know, musicians and writers and everything else, to talk more about, you know, the human condition and the fact that, you know, we are all aging, you know, and not everybody is born in a body that, you know, functions well. You know, there are people with disabilities and things like that. And why are they not as valuable as you or I?
Exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
But
the biggest scam is aging cream, you know, anti-aging cream.
Right.
No matter how much goop you put on your face, you're going to get old. You know?
Right. Yeah.
And the thing is, the people that they're showing with the aging cream are young people.
Right.
Nobody up there 70 years old putting on aging cream. Come on, get out of here.
Well, no, because you see, they're putting that fear in them. It's like, if you don't do this, you're going to look like this. And the fact is, they're going to look like that anyway.
Right. They sure are. They sure are.
But in the meantime, they're going to spend thousands of dollars trying not to look like that.
Just amazing.
Crazy. It's
You're going
crazy.
to,
It's
you
crazy.
want to get old. You want to get old because the alternative is death. And I know, and I'm more than sure all you all know, a bunch of dead people. And not one of them has ever come back and said, lady, you got to try this because death is the bomb.
Right.
Nobody wants to die. Everybody wants to live. Life is good. And if you're lucky, you're going to get old. I want to be old. I want to be a whole lot older. That's the goal in life. And have an old body that goes with it.
Well, I know this is off the subject, but I told my nieces and everything. I don't have children. To my nieces, I say, you know, I'm 76 years old. I say, because if I die right now, I don't feel like I've lost anything at all. However, one day I couldn't catch my breath, and I thought, oh, I got COVID. I'm calling everybody saying, don't let me die, don't let me die.
Oh no.
All right,
I was ready to go.
Jacqueline. Let me unmute you. Okay. It seemed like you wanted to say something.
Yes, I was looking at the art, African art in a museum in France. It was taken from Benin when they colonized the people in Benin. And the people were walking through the art gallery and they were just in amazement at the beautiful art. And most of the art, they were statues of unclothed Africans.
Okay.
And why is it that they think that art is so beautiful? And
Because
it is beautiful art. But they don't think that our bodies are beautiful. I can't understand. Our bodies are the same as the African bodies. The art, have you seen that art up in the museum? They're building a new museum for it in France. I think it's France, Paris or France. France. They are building a special museum for all of that Benin art.
Right.
I don't understand.
I'm not particularly familiar with the exact art you're talking about.
They're beautiful.
But there are African collections all over the world. And in
Right.
fact, we have a curator at the High Museum. She's a young African-American woman who is in the process of expanding their collection of African art. And before we get too far down that road, I wanted to mention to you, there's positives about that, and then there's also negatives. And the negative is that, a lot of cultures feel as though a lot of, their national heritage has been stolen from them.
Yes.
And that's particularly true in a lot of African cultures.
Yes.
If you look at a lot of the museums who hold, a lot of the ancient art from Nigeria, for example, which I think is mainly ended up in it's in England, in London. And then the same thing was true with a lot of the Greek art. They literally came in and dismantled temples and Egypt and moved them to England and, put them up, or parts of them, as facades and things in these English museums. And now there's a big backlash to have a lot of that stuff returned.
Yeah, I saw it online.
Right, but that's an issue because you're appropriating people's cultural history. You see, and when those people can't walk, through those sites and things and look at what their ancestors, made, they lose the context, for their culture, And so a lot of Nigerians are just becoming aware of the fact that, about 5,000 years ago, there was a culture there that was creating these beautiful bronze, statues en masse, and that they had a very advanced culture. And that culture has almost been totally erased, Same thing with, like a lot of the Assyrian, the monuments, the pottery, the sculpture. I mean, it's basically been dismantled and disseminated all over the world. And now those people, living in that area, what do they see? They see mud walls and fallen down temples and things like that. They have no idea about the level of technical skill and decoration and things that, that was there, 5,000 and 6,000 years ago, and so, you're always having this issue of, yes, it's good to have a representation, so that people can see it, but at the same time, when you appropriate so much of that art that you've almost totally erased that society, it's kind of a tragedy. And we have that same problem with Native American art.
Yeah,
and you have to ask yourself, who is doing this?
Oh,
who's
well,
doing this,
well, I'll tell you who's doing it. We are. We are. I mean, okay, prime case, and this is.
They tried to erase the Native American totally.
Oh yeah, and I mean, it's sad to say, but it's still actually going on. Okay?
Oh, I know.
Yeah, it's not gone away.
They're talking about the water in those areas right now, and how they're being contaminated in those areers.
Right. Yeah, the pipelines and things that they're trying to. Yeah, that gets into a whole nother political thing. But we're talking about artwork. The Smithsonian had the largest collection of Native American artifacts of anywhere in the world. And in fact, not only Native American artifacts, but also Native American bodies, and skulls, and bones. And those were all dug out of the mounds that are all over Ohio, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and they all ended up there. Now, a lot of those tribes are asking, for those remains and for those artifacts to be repatriated so that they can teach their own people their culture.
Yeah, because there's more than one culture,
Oh yeah. I mean, it's, we can get off deep into some really deep conversations about all of that. But let me steer this back over to the human body again, okay? Since we're
Can I say something?
Sure. Come on, John. Jump in here.
Trying to get in between these women here.
Oh, good luck.
No, my thoughts, and we talk about the appreciation of the body that, and different cultures and different ethnic groups have different physiological characteristics, for one thing, and that may cause people to look at one ethnic group and say, well, that body is beautiful and that body is ugly. And I think the other thing is, as far as what people consider as dirty, I think right now in our culture, if we see a genital, it's dirty. If we see a nude without a genital showing, we can accept that easier.
Yeah, but it's kind of like the question of, as an artist, I mean, it's, how do I want to say this? Do I want to demasculinize a male? Do I want to take away, his genitals? Do I want to, I mean, he's a male. You would expect, if you have a male standing, figure standing there and you're drawing them, what are you supposed to do there? You're supposed to just leave a big blurry spot?
Put a fig leaf on it.
Put a fig leaf on it, hide it, The same thing with, a woman's breast, Are you supposed to put Band-Aids on them? What do you, It's like, what is the culturally correct thing to do? You
I
know.
was getting at more like the pose actually.
Right. Yeah. Well, you know, a lot of artists, you know, and that's a struggle, you know, because a lot of artists are always trying to get around that. It's like, you know, how do I show the figure, male or female, and not make it sexualized, you know?
It's sort of impossible, you know?
No, put a drape in front of it, you can't see it.
Well, okay.
But it's still there.
Right, cover it up. Yeah.
Sexual to me.
But that's not the point of what you're trying to
No,
show.
no. And but you see what you're doing as an artist, if you do that, is you're conceding, you know, you're conceding to society. It's like, you know, oh, okay, so you're going to stop me, you know, from expressing what I want to say because people might think bad things about it.
It's on the
All
sexual.
art is just an opinion, because you could have Picasso and anybody, and you'll get some of these art critics and they'll criticize everything.
Well,
It's their opinion, and that's all it is somebody's opinion.
Yes, and everybody's got one.
You better believe. Several different kinds of opinions.
And this class is a good example of everybody's got a different opinion.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it is.
yeah, and thank God, you know.
That's right.
Well, you could do what Saturday Night Live did years ago, and they created a character called Pat, and you didn't know what gender she was. It was.
Yeah.
But to me, it's only sexual if there's two people, and the two people are actually. But other than that, you know, it's not sex to me. It's a human body.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. Okay, it's about 11:30 now, and I've got one more video I want to show you before we go away. Okay.
Okay.
And I know it's only 4 minutes long, but I know somebody is going to get upset about it. So.
Open your minds. Open your minds.
Yeah. So just keep an open mind about it. Let's see. We have a chat here from Iling to me. Am I on mute? I don't know. Who is Iling in the first place?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
I guess I'm not on mute, but this is Larry.
Oh, Larry, okay.
I've been trying to get in for about a half hour to say something, but...
Oh, good luck.
Yeah, I couldn't get in, but...
we guys had no opportunity.
I'll say this and I'll drop off.
Uh-huh.
For years, I've been drawing nudes of nude women,
Mm-hmm.
and I've got nothing but bad feedback.
Right.
To the point, you know, I've been called names. You're perverted. Can't you, like somebody said, can't you hang a curtain on that or something?
Wow.
I mean, at the point, I don't even do them anymore because, heck, why draw something and try and make it perfect and somebody gives you something like, oh, you're a pervert. So I'm just letting you know that even people in your class, they look at me differently when they see that. And some of them even say, oh my God, not another one.
Larry, Larry, I can feel your pain. Okay. Yeah.
Yes, I do too.
I've stopped doing nudes.
You shouldn't stop doing what you enjoy,
No.
Larry.
No, and that would be my answer as well. I mean, you know, look, people, as somebody said, everyone's going to have an opinion, right? You know, the problem isn't that you're drawing a nude figure, okay? The problem is how they're viewing it. And they're either seeing something sexualized about it or something, and that's their choice, okay? Now, you know, I mean, look at the work of, like, for example, Egon Schiele. Okay, and if you're not familiar with Egon Schiele, you probably need to go look at him.
The last name is spelled
Egon, E-G-O-N, Schiele, S-C-H-I-E-L-E.
Okay.
And, you know, I mean, his work, a lot of people would look at it and go, that's pornographic. It's not, but they make it that way. And then, you know, go back, you know, I mean, you can look at his work, but also before you make a harsh judgment about him, actually take some time and actually read about his life and the things that he went through and the time period that he was living in. And you'll find that, oh, it's probably not what I thought.
That's what they said about that guy they killed last night. You should know a little more about him. But that's a whole nother subject. I won't say it.
Spell the name again, please, Charles, the last name.
Scheele, Scheile. And his first name was Egon.
Well, I got my few minutes of fame in, so let's go and look at the movie.
Okay. Well, here, Larry, you got to watch this film, and then we're gonna wrap up and kiss each other goodbye for until the afternoon. Okay.
Oh, the body is beautiful.
Well, we're gonna explore that idea. Okay.
All right.
So this is oh God, where is this? Woodstock. I think it's Woodstock, New York. There's a school, and anyway, they're doing some experimental drawing, life drawing. Okay, so I'm going to share this with you, and it's almost like an ad, but you get some ideas of some of the things that you could actually do with trying to draw the figure. So here we go. How'd you like to draw with a paint roller? What'd you think of that?
It reminded me of, I took from Shane McDonald for a little while, many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And one of his exercises was to stand at arm's length with the pencil as far in and scribble scrabble on your piece, just for warm-ups and for then try to create something that came out of whatever you were scribbling on the board. But basically after about a minute and a half, your arm got so tired because you weren't used to it that you know, it was interesting. But it kind of reminded me of that.
Okay.
There's another teacher that would take a twig off of a tree and attach a chalk or a pencil or whatever to the end and have you do the same thing away from your canvas on the same kind of a thing you're talking about.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of validity in the fact that, you know, if you took something as, you know, some kind of extension and you get back away and you're doing life drawing, the fact is you have the advantage of you don't have to walk back and forth because you can see, you know, what you're doing and every stroke, how that sort of affects the overall composition and movement. You know, when you're standing right there next to the drawing board, you know, doing it, you really don't get the sense of it until you back away from it.
I know.
I would like to suggest that for the art share this afternoon, everyone send in a nude that they have done. Because I'm sure everyone somewhere in their life has done a drawing or a painting of a nude. And I think it'd be interesting if everyone sent in something that they have done.
Okay.
I wish that was true, John. I've never drawn a human body. I don't have that talent. You know, I've never done a nude.
Well, that's
neither have I.
All right.
It's not that I don't want to. That's not in my wheelhouse. I just can't do that.
All right. Well, let me interject here. Okay. I would say that's a good idea, but let's open it up a little bit more. Okay. Let's just have everybody send in, you know, a drawing or painting with a human figure in it, nude, clothed, or otherwise. Okay.
A whole figure or a partial figure?
Let's do a whole figure.
I haven't done that.
Or, you know, or, you know, I mean, send in whatever you got. You know, even if you tried to draw your own hand, you know, that's fine. Or somebody else's, right? But yeah, any kind of figure drawing, you know.
Okay.
Okay, any kind. Okay.
Drawing.
It could be abstract.
Thanks, John.
All right.
It doesn't have to be, you know, I mean, it's just anything with the idea of a human being, you know, in that image. Okay.
Lady,
Do you want this for Monday?
No.
Yeah.
Do you want this for Monday?
No, send that in for this afternoon.
This afternoon?
Yes.
Yes.
We gotta find it and all that.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, yeah, I'm gonna make it. Okay.
It's gonna be 2 o'clock by the time we get to it.
Yeah, do what you can. Okay.
Okay.
I better hurry up.
I
Sounds like
a sculpture.
What about the nude figure that we did a long time ago?
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
we
look,
got some,
how long does it take to go on the internet, find a picture of somebody sitting in a chair or standing, and sit there and do a gesture drawing? 2 minutes. 2 minutes. That's all it takes.
Yeah, coming from you.
Right, Wanda.
A few lines. That's all it is.
Okay, let me look up gesture drawing.
Okay. Oh, you remember doing a gesture drawing? Okay, all right. I think I can do that. All right.
Let me look. Now y'all look to go.
And everybody must promise not to laugh at each other's stuff.
No.
That's right.
Okay.
That's all right.
Larry,
Express an opinion.
I did a sculpture recently of a nude body, the bust of a nude woman.
You do sculptures, Jacqueline?
And
oh, wow.
It was very interesting doing it for the first time.
Okay. Well, send us a photograph of it, okay?
Yeah, that's excellent.
Yeah. Okay, I will send.
All right. Anyway, all right. We'll be back here at 2 o'clock, okay?
Okay.
Do not wait till, you know, like 1:57 to send me an okay?
Well, I gotta go. I'll see everybody.
On our mission.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I gotta go find a gesture drawing.
Bye.
Charles, what is your email real quick?
Oh, my email?
Yeah, I forgot.
Okay. All right. Here you go. Charles.
Go ahead. Scoggins.
Scoggins. SCOGINS. At. Fulton. County. And it's all lowercase. GA.
Okay.
.gov.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. We'll see you guys at 2.
Okay.
Bye.